Well, happy fucking Friday, hey? We've done it. One more week.
Kind of, sorta, almost. I'm stoked that you're stoked. I had one beer last night while playing Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons with my friend. And this morning, I feel like I got hit by a truck. Oh. So, I think I'm learning that I might be the least cool young adult on the planet.
Well, it's a good humbling thing for you to realize real quickly, I guess. Nowhere to go but up or to the washroom. So,
yeah.
Anyways, it's Friday morning, and we are going to hit this day running and hard. This is from our friends over at Age of Wolves. We did a breakfast with the band with them. Al Yeti Bones, Michael Edwards. This is Overlord. Enjoy it. Turn it up.
Souls that never stop screaming a song to a I'm gonna share it in a second.
And good morning, everybody. We are live with Eric and Justice. Hi, Eric.
Good morning.
Hello. Hi,
How are you
everyone.
doing this morning?
I'm not too bad. Not too bad yourself.
Oh,
Awesome.
it's been one of those mornings for me personally, but it is Friday. We are looking toward the weekend, and always excited to meet someone new and to have one of these chats. So for me and our audience who don't know, Eric, can you introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name's Eric Bonnici, and most people around Windsor, Essex, know me as Eyes on Windsor. Um, I started that back in 1999, and it's basically a website and social media that shows people fun things to do in Windsor, Essex.
1999.
And also, I work
1999.
full time at the
Cool.
Chrysler plant on the assembly line,
Yeah.
and I have family. I have 2 daughters and my wife, and a couple dogs and a bird.
Couple
cat.
dogs and the bird. So back to this. 1999. 1999 is when you started up Eyes on Windsor.
Yeah.
For those people who are born only in the Facebook days, this is pre-Facebook. This is pre a lot of social kind of platforms. How did you start that out way back in '99? Just give a little bit of that.
Well, I had this bit. It's kind of a long story, but I'll try and keep it as short as possible. When I was at the University of Windsor, I took one of my optional courses I chose to take was a computer science course, and the semester project was to build a website, and I kind of liked it and caught on to it, so I kept learning about that on my own, and I said, well, I want to build a website, but I wasn't too sure what to do it about, and I said, well, I'll start doing restaurant reviews, and I just went through the phone book, because things weren't really organized well online back then, and I took as many restaurants as I could find in the phone book, broke them down into like different categories, like maybe Italian or pizza or whatever, and I just made a directory on the site, and once a month I'd send out a newsletter with a restaurant review in it, and it did pretty good at first. People were checking it out and signing up to the newsletter, and I was trying to think of how to make some money from it. So I was going out to the restaurants and saying, hey, do you want to advertise on my site? Do you want to, what do you call it? Like a premium directory list, and we'll give you like a big article and everything. And everybody was saying to me, what do we need the internet for? Nobody wanted to go on the internet back then. So I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't going to work. But I still kept doing the reviews and that. But in 2003, I was laid off for about a year from Chrysler, and the plant up in Brampton started a midnight shift, and we were offered a job to go up there. So I went up and took that job, and I let Eyes on Windsor just sit there. And what happened was they started getting outdated. Like newer restaurants were opening up in Windsor, and some of the older ones were closing down, and people were starting to email me and getting mad that I didn't have the new ones on there, or I didn't get rid of the old ones. So we came back to Windsor in around 2008, and I decided to start up Eyes on Windsor again. But there was some restaurant directors around, and Windsor Eats was taking off, and they were doing a great job. And I decided to change it up a bit and do fun things to do in Windsor, Essex. And because up until then, we didn't realize how many fun things there were to do in Windsor.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody would say, oh, it's boring here. So when we came back, after being in Toronto, we were always like finding things to do, and we said, hey, they got a lot of kind of similar things here, maybe not as big and not as many, but there's a lot of great places to check out, and we started like checking places out. Anyway, so that's how it turned into fun things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we
starting that though in 2008 and kind of moving a little, like 2008 was kind of our first, well, not our first, but there was an economic slump going on. I was in Vancouver from 1999 to 2014, and in 2008, when we were seeing the slump in a lot of other industries, teaching at a photo school ended up being this really amazing buffer, because people had nothing to do and they were laid off, and some of them also got buyouts from some of their companies, and people were purchasing camera gear and coming in and taking more of our lessons for hobbyists or for people that were turning like hobby to kind of professional. How, with that climate of 2008, 2009, how did things like, Windsor Eats and Eyes on Windsor, how did you guys end up kind of bridging through that? Or was there just a need for that to happen at that point?
Well, for myself, it kind of was the photography. What I did in 2008 was I just started going out and taking pictures with my cell phone. That's when cameras were just starting to get kind of good on cell phones. And I started an Eyes on Windsor Facebook page, and I would just post my pictures with a few lines about where I was and what happened. And I really didn't get back into the website until a couple years after that, and I started updating that too. But I don't know. I don't know how it worked. I wasn't making any money. That's for sure.
I guess that's the thing. Is it not like it was like padding your pocket, but I guess it was keeping you. Yeah. There's a forward movement to it all. This is what I'm very interested in is, always talking to creative people and self-starters, and knowing that you've had another job in a factory, which is by no means a cushy job. However, it gives you a lot of guarantees, and it gives you a lot of, kind of structure to your vacations and your life. You're able to have stability and still produce creative things. So
yeah,
I think it's
feed the family as well. So that's where bread and butter comes from for that.
When did it start to shift, though, that Eyes on Windsor, or has it shifted where it's part of your kind of financial income and part of your livelihood?
Well, it's not really yet. I make like a peanuts from Google Ads on there, mm-hmm. and I've had so far one paying advertiser, and everything else is like just sponsorships or collaborations.
Yeah.
So there really isn't much revenue coming in right now. I had actually planned to try and work on that this summer, but then the pandemic hit, so I didn't bother.
No.
That's.
But I was gonna do things like try and sell banner advertising. I never really pushed for it, so I didn't. I just didn't want to do sales. I don't like doing sales, but I guess you got to do it, or bring some people on, because that way I could have some people maybe doing it for me, and they can get a nice commission for it. Because time's another factor as well. But there's not much revenue coming in from that. It's just fun and I enjoy it.
Passion project, yeah, absolutely. That sort of kind of segues a little bit into a part of our next line of questioning, which is how has sort of quarantine and COVID pandemic life affected your ability to do Eyes on Windsor, to participate with your project that way?
Well, it's changed quite a bit, and actually, to be honest, I've been slacking a lot. I try and share some events, like there's a lot of online events going on. So there's a few that I'll push, like Blues Fest Windsor has always been really good to us every year, and we do like sponsorship with them. So like I really push their stuff every week, and like when I see like local bands and that streaming online, I'll try and share some of their stuff, but it's hard to cover it all because there's so many doing it right now.
Yeah.
And the theater companies are starting to do it as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we did a little bit of work with ACT, actually. So.
I really slowed down. I just stopped updating the events calendar, which was one of the major things that we did, because there really isn't anything out there other than online events, streaming events, and there's so many of them.
Yeah.
That I can't. I'll be up day and night trying to keep up with it.
And this is kind of why we've chosen a bit of a morning slot,
focusing on taking pictures a lot now, so.
Oh, so you've been pulling the camera back out and doing a little bit of that work? You've been pulling?
Yeah. I just before all I shot was like I was getting pretty good at shooting concerts and plays, and then I would do like parades and stuff like that, or maybe some things going on at festivals, and I never really took time to like improve my photography skills. I just was I shot in auto a lot, except in the darker conditions.
Yeah, yeah.
So then I started doing things like sunsets and whatever, nature, and it's pretty cool. I like doing that.
I think photography obviously for me is like just an interesting process of learning, and even to find that, you've been shooting for so long and now you're taking time after, 2008 to kind of like brush up on some skills, move past auto. These are good things. We should have more talks. Probably would just bore the shit out of most of our guests, but look at Justice. She's like, yes, don't talk photo stuff too much. But one other thing that I find is a pretty interesting thing, because Justice and I are taking our passion projects and we're doing things and we're trying to kind of be consistent. And a little bit about, touch back on that history is people enjoy the consistency. People enjoy having that stuff in their lives. And there isn't a lot of times that you get that feedback back until there's a vacuum there, and people are like, oh, well, I really appreciated what you were doing. Why are you not updating, Eyes on Windsor? Why are you not doing this? And you're like, well, if there is this much of a hole, how can we not sort of make some money at it? I've worked with several different kind of local or more local Windsor things, and I find that there's a little bit of a barrier between what's considered kind of these passion projects or passion publications or little magazines and what our area considers media. Eyes on Windsor has kind of moved into that realm of being considered media. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And you are now more invited into some of those, I guess now, like when the city is giving debriefings and stuff, you're kind of on that list, right?
There's not everyone yet, but there's a lot of organizations that are sending us press releases and saying they're having media conferences. So I go whenever I get those. I'll go out, but sometimes I can't because I can't miss work for every press conference.
Right. Yeah.
But if I'm not working, I'll go out.
I appreciate that.
There's so many things going on. We focus more on the like entertainment side of it, the fun events, because it's great that the charities are raising money, and what they do is a lot of them will show their thanks to the people who donated, and that they'll do their check presentations, and there's like a few of those every week, so I can't. And again, and that's just that. Then there's all kinds of other news going on, and I can't cover it all, so I decided to focus on the entertainment. So we like to focus on the music, theater, arts, like art exhibits and stuff like that, and maybe some of the attractions and things going on around here. And even that's a lot to cover.
It is. I think the entertainment end of it, there's kind of a hole because the Windsor Star essentially stopped kind of doing that, and you're picking this up. But also I think that in the city we have a lack of representation for alternative media or alternative news sources. So it is things like your passion project with Eyes on Windsor that allows us to see things and allows us to interact with those things in the area that sometimes aren't the commercially most viable things to cover. Not having advertisers on your platform, not being driven by that dollar, allows you to essentially choose what you want to talk about it how you'd like to talk about it, and present it back out. And it sucks that alternative media people have to work for peanuts, but it's still a very important thing, and so much so, like, arts and entertainment aren't covered by our local news anymore. It doesn't seem to be news, and we need things like Eyes on Windsor to really, hopefully after this, kind of bring people back to those things that were going on that were really, really exciting. I'm going to share a little bit of my story with Eyes on Windsor. Justice, you look like you're about to say something.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit before you dive too deep, Six. I wanted to ask Eric a little bit how sort of the transition, because you talked about starting Eyes on Windsor as like a newsletter and a website. So I'm wondering especially how the transition to being like a social media presence, how that's felt for you, how the engagement with things like Facebook or Instagram, if you're on those other platforms, how that worked for you, how you feel about those things.
And do you mean like how I got into using them? Is that what you're
Yeah, sort of the process of like starting to use it, how it made you feel, how you feel about the platforms, just those sorts of things.
Well, the first thing I ever really signed up for was Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, there was other things before that, like ICQ. I don't know if anybody remembers that. But,
yes.
But Facebook, I would say, was the first social media platform I signed up for. And that was just because everybody else was doing it when it first came out. So, I don't know. Then once I did the, what do you call it there? The website and got into Twitter and that, it just kind of snowballed slowly. And I guess WeTech Alliance kind of noticed what I was doing, and they were doing Social Media Day, which happens all over the world, and it's organized by Mashable, the website Mashable.
Yep.
Anyways, they said, "Oh, we're having a meeting. Do you want to come to our meeting?" And I went, and I ended up getting into their social media superheroes group, and it was really cool because I was like surprised. Like, there's people who work for the mayor's office, people from the health unit, the Windsor Star, the media people. They all had someone there. I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I started really networking then, and it just grew little by little. I don't know.
No, that answers it perfectly.
And right now I just use like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter mainly. And I would use the others too, but it's just too much work.
And to be clear, you are generally, and this is always like from a tech point of view or a geek point of view, Eyes on Windsor is still your home for your information, and you are using those other platforms just to get that information out. Am I correct?
Yeah. So that's basically what I do.
And right back to kind of when I talk geeky with people, Facebook and Instagram and Twitters are all platforms, and those people can control information that you put on there. They can control how you actually get that information out. So, way back in the geek part of me, having a blog, having your own website, having your own home base where you can do what you want to do is really important. And it shows now after how many years you've been doing this, to have started out in that platform and to still be using that base foundation, which is yours and yours alone, and then using those other platforms as spokes or as just little ways to disseminate your information, or it's probably the most proper way to go about it, as opposed to some people who just literally build everything right off of Facebook and hope that hope they get a great following there, and then hope that it goes through to the Instagram.
That's kind of a pet peeve. I don't know if it's a pet peeve, but it bothers me because people, like businesses, will like focus just on Facebook or on a certain social media platform. They don't have their own website, and what they don't realize is one day Facebook might go bankrupt and just erase everything, and your page is gone. Google tried to get into the social media game with
Google Plus. Yeah. Yep.
And I started using that. It was starting to build up a bit.
Yep.
I used that for Eyes on Windsor, but then they just decided we're shutting down. So all those followers, they're gone.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is have your own website. And I know I should be doing this too, but I was doing it. But another important thing is to like have a newsletter too.
Yeah.
Collect people's contact information, maybe once a month, send them an email. And that way you build your following and you keep that following. Even if every social media platform goes out of business, you still have your audience. But if you don't do that, you're going to lose everything. Like, you have to start from scratch somewhere else.
Yeah, the transient nature of like these social media platforms. I mean, you mentioned ICQ. We could go back to MySpace. I mean, I could go back to a lot of things that I used to use and have profiles on that no longer exist, or I can't even access them anymore.
Yeah. I wonder how much like sort of the popularization of the internet and sort of the absolute monoliths that these sort of social media, Facebook especially, because Facebook owns both Facebook and Instagram, so it's fascinating to me kind of how the control over web space has changed. And I know, Six, when we first started our business, we talked a lot about how platform death and platform migration was something that we were sort of concerned about. But from my perspective, granted not having been online as long, it seems that we've kind of transitioned into this place now where these social media platforms are sort of institutions, and they've crossed that like barrier into that too big to fail realm, or too big to be allowed to fail realm. And that's just some food for thought, interesting, and worth considering, I think.
The evil giants.
For sure. Yeah, like I don't think Facebook's going anywhere soon, but you just never know.
No, just in case, absolutely.
You don't. There's stuff coming out about all these guys all the time, so you just never know where these platforms are going to go. But it isn't one guy anymore. It's not Zuckerberg. It's not all. They are huge multinational corporations that do things, and many apps underneath their main platform as well. Advertising dollars, yada 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 yada. And ultimately, because of that, it does make it difficult for people like people who run their own blogs or run their own thing to get those advertising dollars, because people feel like, well, I'd rather spend this over here. I am very much, and Justice and I have had conversations like this because we do work for the Ottawa Street BIA, and we're wondering if now, like, the way that marketing is going to happen and the way that people are going to be searching for local things is going to remove some of that, I guess, the social crutch we have on Facebook. And then instead of letting the algorithm fill you full of stuff, you're going to start looking at things like, I don't know, We Shop, or this or that to try and find some local stuff. I wonder also how many people are just going to be turned off by a platform like Facebook after, 3 years of political bullshit in the States and exactly what's going on now. So I wonder how many people will just start to want to find their information by going to Eyes on Windsor again and using those main route places instead of all the other extensions. Again, more food for thought. And this is a Friday morning. We're throwing way too much food for thought at these people. Way too much. Eric, I really, when Justice and I started this, we really knew that the morning point for us was the point in the day where we had a lot of energy and generally the most positive outlook on our day. During this time, there are little small things that I've been doing kind of daily or as a practice to try and be a little bit more better and productive, progressive, a better human being. Is there something that you've been doing in your personal kind of daily life to get you through some of the stuff with COVID to keep you positive on your outlook?
Well, I just find it, I'm back to work now, but before it was nice just to spend time with family most of the time. Sometimes the kids can drive you crazy, especially when they start saying, I'm bored. But it's nice to be able to, sit around in the backyard and have a fire with your family and, or visit your in-laws or your parents. And something that I didn't do that much because I was working 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, and then either running around, doing interviews, taking pictures, covering events, and I just didn't have much time for anything else. My wife wasn't happy. She was always mad that I was going out, so I had to start missing a few things here and there. But it's important to connect with your family and friends, and so that was one positive thing. And another thing that kept me happy personally was that I loved going out and taking the pictures. And also right now, like what's going on in the States and around the world with the all the racism and protests and marches, that I don't know why that really bothers me. I think it probably bothers everybody. So like once in a while I'll share some information about that just to like keep the awareness going.
Mm-hmm. That's important.
I watched a show called Hate Thy Neighbor. I'm boggled by how many hate groups there are around the world, and the way they think is just like so crazy and illogical. It's actually scary.
Oh,
like there's even a black KKK group. I forget what they're called, but they're just basically the KKK, but they're black and they hate white people, and they're scary. So I can only imagine like how black people have felt because of the KKK all these years.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah,
but these guys, they're terrifying. They are so terrifying. But that whole thing, it's scary, really scary.
Like just trying to be a better human and wishing that we could just all be better humans and
just be good to each other. Is the most
just
important
be good.
thing.
just be good, help, listen, learn, Eric, I want
I volunteered for the June 27th miracle. I wish I would have done a little more volunteering before going back to work, but I guess there really wasn't much going on to volunteer for.
No.
But I think everybody should do some kind of volunteer work too, because it's really it's good for the community, and a lot of the groups, the charity groups or organizations can't afford to pay people either, and they're all struggling, especially right now. So you can help them out. Whether it's you don't always have to give them money, because not everybody can, but you can give them a little bit of time, and that's
for sure
a good thing to do, I think, as well.
I think you've summed up the end of the show very nicely. I couldn't say it better. We all do have a little bit of time, and I think now the realization of how much time we have and how much work was kind of fake busy work, we can now put our time and effort into things that sometimes mean a little more or help a little bit more. And I thank you for that very succinct kind of ending to our show. I really appreciate you spending the time with us, and literally, through two jobs and having to run around to all these other non-events that are going on. But I appreciate it, Eric, and we will continue to share out the stuff that you're doing. I didn't get into my big long story, but when my wife and I got back here, and she was always like, "Hey, what the hell goes on here?" Yours was the website. Yours was the place that we checked out every weekend to get our family out and to learn the area. And it was very nice to be at events where you photographed myself and my family having a good time.
I caught you a couple of times.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for doing what you do.
Well, thank you, and thanks for what you guys are doing too.
Thank you. All right.
Absolutely.
Like you and that are get the word out about our community, right?
Yeah, that's all we're trying to do. Megaphones.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Yeah. You enjoy your weekend. We will see you all on Monday. Thank you very much for joining us.
Have a good one.